Hey guys, somebody's gone here. Today, we're going to be watching Scented, Edgy, and Commandment. We're going to VOD review the NA East FNCS Grand Finals from Season 6. They got second place. This is their third straight second place overall finish in an FNCS Grand Finals, so you know they're doing something right. Now, the Low Ground Kings have a very unique play style compared to most trios that are looking to play height or go for big elimination wins. Now, don't get me wrong, this trio can pop off for big wins, as we'll see here. They have a 13 elimination win, a couple of 8-point games, and were performing up to expectations throughout the tournament, but fell just short in the final match to fall in second place, which in my opinion is really solid still. So we're going to take a look, see how these guys were able to perform so consistently, go over their early game, their Storm Surge plan, and get into some of their tendencies in late game. So I hope you guys enjoy the video. If you do, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Let's get right to it. On day one, Scented, Edgy, and Commandment got all of Misty Meadows as well as the cabins nearby. This meant an additional bunker chest for the trio and all of this extra loot. Honestly, they don't need all of this loot, especially when you get Misty uncontested, but when you're getting a free bunker chest, you're going to take it. On day two, we're going to see some trios land up near the disco and nearby, so that will be a problem for Scented, Commandment, and Edgy as far as taking the cabins. They'll still get Misty uncontested. Now let's talk about the loot that they were leaving Misty Meadows with. Typically, this trio was walking away with one, maybe no purple or gold pump shotguns. That left them prioritizing ARs or assault rifles, or just getting those based on RNG. But we also see the harpoon was consistent, and at least one infantry rifle, typically given to Edgy or Scented, was prioritized for Storm Surge. We can then see that peppers were also a play, given and held by Commandment. Commandment, Scented, and Edgy pretty much ran like a clock, looting and rotating out of Misty. Their earliest time out was 1:24 on the clock before zone closed. That's when they pushed the team over near disco, and the latest they left was 3:25 left on the clock with storm closing, so about 30 seconds in the first storm closing. Their average time was about 8 seconds before first storm close, so they were leaving about as first storm closed every single time. Another characteristic of this trio is constantly using vehicles to rotate. They're always holding and using vehicles on first, second, third, maybe even fourth if they can do it, rotations, and they're not afraid to build while in the car. So instead of just simply tanking damage or getting shot at a bunch, they spend the materials, use the vehicles, and rotate on through faster. Commandment, Scented, and Edgy prioritized this exact mountain 5 out of the 12 games. This was their most common surge position, and look for tags frequently here. We can see them looking back to teams on the south, but more often than not, they were able to find tags on players rotating in from the north side. We could see builds coming in the far distance, and this trio would consistently look to take shots on any teams rotating from the north. If zone was pulling to the central area or to the south, this team could be found up on this mountain taking tags. Generally, what this trio did for Storm Surge is find elevated positions in zone 1 or 2. Then in zone 3, they would look to hold players on edge if they still needed Storm Surge tags. Eventually, it ran into issues for this trio where they would get on edge next to a bunch of Shambles teams that they helped create the Shambles teams, but no longer wanted to be on the edge with these teams. So instead of simply just waiting here on the edge with these trios, they went ahead, moved along, got the Storm Surge damage and tags they needed, and then decided, okay, it is no longer worth it. Let me avoid any Shambles fights on the edge of zone here, and let's get into a position that we need to be. This winds up paying off big time for the trio as they rotate on past, while a bunch of other trios continue to fight here on edge of zone and get forced into Shambles positions. They make late rotates, and instead of continuing to be one of these teams fighting on edge here, Commandment, Scented, and Edgey already get in and then look to hold trios as they're trying to make this 4th zone rotation. It's a pretty solid plan, and really only reason that this trio is looking to play on edge at times is when they need that additional Storm Surge damage. For the most part, they want to play center and get an elevated high position and take tags from a distance. This trio is not one to be looking for fights in the early and mid game unless they're proving a point when someone is landing near them. I found this 3rd zone rotate very interesting by this trio. So here in 3rd zone, they're going to use peppers and invest in this rotation. Now they could have simply gotten to the edge of 3rd zone here, but instead of doing that, they're going to look to get center of 3rd, which has debatably been better or worse at times this season. It's typically not been as strong because of the lack of damage that you're going to get needed for Storm Surge. This trio has already collected 1 elimination and plenty of Storm Surge earlier in this match, so they're going to continue to push in to the center of this 3rd zone. And instead of simply just playing the position that they were given, they want to force the center of 3rd to allow them to avoid this congested bottom area. Now, we can see all these trios down here on the bottom. They recognize that this is going to be a super congested side and force themselves out of that area to avoid any shambles fights or potential fights needed by other teams looking to get Storm Surge. I'm only going to show you one full endgame, and this is going to be it. This trio gets a max distance pull for 6th zone after already being in 5th, and they're going to go ahead and begin to make their rotation. Now, typically Scented is the one that will lead the rotations until about 6th zone. Commandment takes over as the one who tarps, and Scented goes back to play with Edgey. Those two go and look for refreshes as well as hold the backside positioning and work with Commandment to continue to build the tarp. But as far as the lead tarper, that becomes Commandment, who looks to play the front side and hold the front side. Now, the video is called the Low Ground Kings, but in this video, or this example of the game, the trio isn't going to play Ultimate Low Ground, and that is why they are so good. Now, low ground strategy can easily be combated and destroyed by going up elevation. They recognize certain areas on the map are not going to be able to be played for low ground consistently. And because of this, they're going to look to avoid playing ultimate low on these positions, but merely stay as low as the mountain is or just above the mountain. Now we see that they're in kind of a shambles position, able to go back through some old builds, save a lot of positioning, and let's check in with Edgey, because he's normally the one that pops off in these end games, getting eliminations. But because they built such a clean layer on this rotate, they're absolutely chilling, and they don't really look for refreshes. Unless they're necessary, this trio is looking just to simply make rotations, stay together, and find free plays, drop downs for rotates. If that's not a possibility, this trio is just going to give it up and walk on past, play for that additional placement, and play whatever materials they have. Unlike a lot of trios, they don't look to outplay their mats and will simply just wait until they have absolutely nothing or play within the builds that they're given, place them down, and then look to use those to make some plays. Now we just see that they're sitting in a tarp playing this game out. Nothing special, many of you guys can do this, but what I want to point out here is the quick recognition to see that this zone is pulling up an elevated position. Instead of waiting, this trio immediately starts moving up, and unlike most of us, they're going to survive this rotation. If I'm in this position, I wind up going down because I don't know where to go, but somehow this trio is able to survive, make their way through, and continue this rotation. It's actually amazing recognition to both get up above and then look to move around this position into the zone. Now I want to show you a nice little play that Scented makes here, which is amazing and gets them honestly so much further. Yes, okay, that double collateral piece was absurd, but that's not even what I'm talking about. So Sened's teammates are going to go down. He's running low on materials. They can't continue to push this and play this out. So instead of looking to get into zone here, Sened is going to dive back in and then just tick away in Storm, which actually winds up getting him second place. So instead of simply just going ahead and trying to force his way into zone, getting into a fight and falling earlier, he is able to pick up that additional placement point because he's just going back into Storm. Another piece that this trio does so well in late game is go ahead and shoot through builds before they have to move through them. So instead of going through old players' builds and hoping that nobody is looking for that edit, these guys shoot through the builds, claim the pieces, and own the boxes before they walk into somebody else's builds. Yes, they will occasionally do this and go in other people's builds, which is super successful in saving materials. But they're going to use their AR to go ahead and claim pieces ahead so that they don't necessarily have to worry about getting edited on or have to worry about another trio just fully jumping in their box after making an edit. Another thing this team does consistently well is going to be playing the edge of zone. And what I mean by that is the left or right side of these moving zones. We can see that they're consistently leaving the right side in this case, left side in other cases open to allow them to save some materials, and this is giving them additional angles. Yes, it is closed in the future, but if Commandment just has to focus on one side, this is going to put them in a much better position without using the same number of materials on one player. Then we see that they're going to get all the way deep into the 7th moving zone, which is much deeper than the edge that most players are going to look to get into, and then turn back around and spray, causing absolute chaos and havoc for multiple trios caught on the edge there. Then they're going to go back, and we'll see them reap the benefits of this, as so many players just went down in this area, and they're going to harpoon all this additional loot. This is a strategy that they use quite often after claiming a ton of space and layers and then causing panic on the backside or edge of Storm. Just solid work by this trio. Really good ways to identify where weak players are, and then not only are they going to identify the weak players, they're also going to be able to take advantage of it and get refreshes out of it. This trio rarely forced refreshes and typically saved their materials pretty well, but when they did, they made some great plays. As we can see here, a quick double elimination onto the final two trailing duos in this trio. Sitting in a bush waiting for the first player to get on pass, and then absolutely punishing both players for their late rotations and not checking the bushes. Really smart cerebral play by this trio to get a clean double refresh and absolutely stack them. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. There's a ton to learn from this trio. They've really perfected the low ground strategy and continue to excel at playing it in every single tournament. We see they're so consistent, and that is due to their consistent play on the low ground. Now, if you guys want a little bit more, was this not good enough? You can find the full link to 12 game VOD notes in the description. Also, all 12 games we reviewed on stream, so make sure to check that out if you want. Twitch.tv/somebodysgun. Want to thank you guys for watching. Really appreciate you. As always, I'm Somebody's Gun, and I'll see you guys next time.